His Excellency Sri Vipul, Ambassador of India to Qatar, respected Harish Bhatji, members and friends of IBPC Qatar, all those people who have joined from different parts of the world who love the brand Tata as well as Mr. Ratan Tata. Good evening to you all. Today we gather to honor the extraordinary life and legacy of Mr. Ratan Tata, a visionary leader, a compassionate soul, and a shining example of humanity. Mr. Tata left an indelible mark on our lives, our community, and our world. He inspired countless individuals to strive for excellence. As we start this session, I request all the participants to observe 1 minute silence as a mark of respect to the great man. Thank you all. Mr. Tata's selflessness, empathy, and kindness touched hearts and created a ripple effect of goodness. When Mr. Ratan Tata took over the leadership of Tata Group, the brand Tata was already a household name in India. But from there, he took it over to a global level. From a period when people were thinking about expanding their network in India, he went into areas where we had territories which were untouched. And the Salt to Software company not only touched the hearts of Indian people, but for all those people who across the world who believes in doing business in the right way and giving humanity a good example across the globe. And many people talk about mourning when somebody passes away. But I think we are all fortunate that we have had a great man from our place and we were able to witness the leadership style of a great man. And there are enough leadership lessons for us to copy in our lives, and which will take us forward in our business, our profession, and even in our personal life. So now when we decided about having a session as a tribute to the great man, IBPC Qatar decided who would be the right person. And the first name which came to us was a person who has spent more than 3 decades with Tata, served in different roles, who had the privilege and fortune to be working closely with Mr. Ratan Tata. He has been a great speaker as well as a best-selling author. So Mr. Harish Bhatt has kindly agreed to join us in this session. So would like to thank him. But before going further, we would like to inaugurate the sessions, and I would like the Ambassador of India to Qatar, His Excellency Mr. Vipul, to inaugurate the session. And Mr. Vipul has already, in the short tenure he had in Qatar, he has also proved to be a people's leader and a people's ambassador. So I welcome His Excellency Sri Vipul to kindly inaugurate the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Taha ji. And I would like to inaugurate this session. I would like to thank you as the president of IBPC for organizing this wonderful session. Let me also thank the entire executive committee and board of governors of IBPC for organizing this event in the memory of late Sri Ratan Tata ji. This is the first formal program of IBPC Qatar under its new team, and I'm happy that a large number of people from India, Qatar, and other countries have joined us. The presence of so many of us today is a fitting tribute to one of the greatest Indian businessmen and philanthropists. I would also like to welcome Mr. Harish Bhatt, and I look forward to his talk on Sri Ratan Tata, drawing from his experience of working with him and with Tata Sons in general. Well, we all received the news of the passing away of Sri Ratan Tata with great sadness on October 9 at the age of 86 years. His death was mourned, or as Mr. Taha said, his life contribution was cherished not only by Indians but people from across the world, including the Qatari society. I have personally heard tributes from several prominent Qataris on Sri Ratan Tata, and this shows the high esteem in which he was held by the Qatari businessmen as well. Of course, the lives of all Indians and many Qataris have in some way or the other been touched by Tata Group, which attained such great heights under the leadership of Sri Ratan Tata. For us Indians, the Tata Group has been present in almost all aspects of our lives, whether it be Tata Salt or going to Tata Motors, TCS, Tanishq, Taj Hotels, Air India, many other companies. All these brands and products have also had an indelible mark of Sri Ratan Tata, and many of these products have and services have been experienced by the people in Qatar as well. One of the much talked about things still in Qatari circles is Tata's acquisition of Jaguar and Land Rover in 2008. For me personally, Sri Ratan Tata and the Tata Group companies stand out for their loyalty to their customers and for Brand India, for their honesty in business practices and the focus on quality, but above all, for the care for society as a whole that the Tata Group brings about. Mr. Tata himself stood out for his simplicity despite being such a towering figure, especially in India. His philanthropic initiatives through Tata Trust have profoundly impacted millions of lives in healthcare, education, and rural development. He also initiated, for example, the projects for cancer care facilities and tertiary care for small animals. Our Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi, paid rich tributes to Sri Ratan Tata on November 9, a month after his passing away. And Honorable Prime Minister recalled that he was, and I quote, an inspiration, a reminder that dreams are worth pursuing and that success can coexist with compassion and humility, unquote. Prime Minister Modi also recalled Mr. Ratan Tata's patriotism that shone brightest in the aftermath of 26/11 terrorist attacks, after which the Taj Hotel in Mumbai, which was attacked brutally by the terrorists, was swiftly reopened. And that was also a rallying call for the entire nation of India. Prime Minister said that generations will be grateful for Mr. Ratan Tata for making India a better, kinder, and more hopeful place. I feel that there are lessons to be learned and values to be followed from the life and work of Sri Ratan Tata for all of us. Let's pay homage to him and honor him by deciding to work for making a better society, a better India, and a better world through integrity and excellence in business and in life. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and I would like to once again thank IBPC Qatar for organizing this event. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Your Excellency. each one of us will have a lot of stories and a lot of experiences which we heard, the news we read about the great things Mr. Ratan Tata has done. I was myself personally fortunate to work for a short period with Tata Group, even though I have worked with many companies, corporates, great organizations from different parts of the world. The experience I had, the tenure I had with Tata Group, gives me a different feeling how well Tata Group takes care of the employees. Even the case study of the experience in Taj Mahal Hotel, as His Excellency was mentioning, that there was the general manager of the hotel who attended uh, uh, as the person who was present in that particular instance at the case study discussion in Harvard Business School. And while he was explaining, he was mentioning the care with which the group took care of the employees, because of which the employees took care of their customers primarily before taking care of their own, ensuring about their own safety. So now to talk more about it, we have a person who has spent more than 37 years with Tata Group. Over this long period, Mr. Harish Bhatt has held many senior roles in the group, including as brand custodian of Tata Sons, which he was having till he retired in the last in the month of December 2023. He held several senior positions like Managing Director and CEO at Tata Global Beverages and Chief Operating Officer of the watches and jewelry business at Titan Company. After his superannuation last year, Mr. Harish is now serving as an advisor at Tata Sons. He is also a director on the boards of some Tata companies, including Trent, Infinity Retail, which is called Chroma, and Tata Starbucks. An avid marketer, Mr. Harish has helped nurture and grow many iconic brands of the Tata Group, such as Tanishq, Titan, Fast Track, Tata Tea, and Chakra Gold Tea. In his most recent role, he led the development and growth of Tata, which is India's most valuable brand. In 2022 and 2023, Forbes listed him as one of the top 10 most influential chief marketing officers in the world. Mr. Harish also played a key role in strategic initiatives such as the acquisition of Tetley Tea by the Tata Group and the turnaround of the jewelry business at Titan. Mr. Harish is a graduate of BITS Pilani and IIM Ahmedabad. In 1987, he won the IIM Ahmedabad Gold Medal for Scholastic Excellence. In 2017, he received the Distinguished Alumnus Award from BITS Pilani. Mr. Harish writes extensively. He has 7 published books to his credit, including 4 national bestsellers. He has been a popular columnist for the Hindu Business Line and Mint newspapers. LinkedIn has selected him as one of their top voices in India. Mr. Harish is an incorrigible foodie and also loves fitness. He feels both these passions are quite compatible with each other. His wife, Veena, is a data scientist. They have a daughter, Gayatri, who has embarked on her professional career. I hope this has given a fair idea about Mr. Harish. Many of you would be already knowing him, and many of you would have already read his books. Now it is time for us to listen about the great man from a person who has spent considerable time with the great man himself. Welcoming Mr. Harish Bhatt. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those warm words of introduction. His Excellency Shri Vipul, Ambassador of India to the State of Qatar, Mr. Taha Mohammad Abdul Karim, President of IBPC Qatar, Excellencies, Embassy officials, Qatari guests, business leaders, members of IBPC and associate organizations, members of the larger Indian community, my colleagues from the Tata Group, and all those who love Mr. Ratan Tata and have joined us from different parts of the world to this session. It is my privilege to address all of you and pay tribute to Mr. Ratan Tata, an icon of our times. He was chairman of the Tata Group for a large part of the 37 years that I worked with the group. I have met him on many occasions though I have not worked very closely with him, but have observed the considerable and deep impact he has had on our group and on the nation at large. Ladies and gentlemen, it's just over a month since Mr. Ratan Tata passed away. We miss his presence greatly. But at the Tata Group, we are inspired by his principles and the memories of his life every single day. I still recall being at NCPA Mumbai last month to pay my last respects to Mr. Ratan Tata. This was the day after he passed away. His body lay in state at the National Council for Performing Arts, at the National Center for Performing Arts. There was an unending line of people from all across Mumbai, and some people who had flown in from other places as well, waiting to pay their tributes to him. Many people were in tears. Across India, across media channels and across many towns, there was an outpouring of love, affection and respect for Mr. Ratan Tata. I still recall that the roads of Mumbai bore posters in tribute to him. As his body left the National Center for Performing Arts for the Worli crematorium, I could see people on the road nearby raise slogans saying Ratan Tata Amar Rahe. There was such universal love and affection as India bid goodbye to an icon who has inspired an entire nation. As His Excellency the Ambassador just said, Prime Minister Narendra Modi recently wrote an article about Mr. Ratan Tata, paying tribute to him. Our Honorable Prime Minister ended this article by saying, as we remember him today, we are reminded of the society he envisioned, where business can serve as a force for good, where every individual's potential is valued, and where progress is measured in the well-being and happiness of all. He remains alive in the lives he touched and the dreams he nurtured. Generations will be grateful to him for making India a better place, a kinder place, and more hopeful place. That's what our Honorable Prime Minister said. Last month, Mr. N. Chandrasekaran, the chairman of Tata Sons, wrote a personal tribute to Ratan Tata on LinkedIn. And here he said, anybody who met Mr. Tata came away with a story about his humanity, his warmth, and his dreams for India. There really was no one like him. Ladies and gentlemen, what was it about Ratan Tata that made him the man he was? What was it about him that made millions of people in India and in other parts of the world respect, adore, and love him? What lessons can we learn from this icon that we can take into our own lives? Those are the questions I will attempt to answer today. To answer these questions comprehensively is a gigantic task, which I am sure historians of the future will apply themselves to. In this brief address, let me try to draw a few lessons from his life and then talk about these lessons, which I think all of us can be inspired by. I will choose to narrate a few stories from his life and then talk about what we can learn from each of these stories. Let me start with a very powerful story of how Ratan Tata decided to make India's first indigenous passenger car, the Tata Indica. Until the mid-1990s, there was no car that India could call truly its own. Of course, the Maruti Suzuki and the Hyundai were on the roads of India. They were good cars, but they had been designed in Japan and Korea and were being assembled in India at that stage. So Mr. Tata stood up at an automobile forum and said, why can't India, which has put a satellite into space, make its own car? Why can't we come together as an industry to create a car that is designed for India, where all the parts in the car are made in India, and it's a car which is suitable for Indian families, for Indian roads? But there was a lot of skepticism when he said this. People said that India does not have the technology to make its own passenger car, that it would be foolhardy and a big risk to take. So what did Mr. Ratan Tata do? He decided that Tata Motors, or Telco as it was then called, would take the risk and attempt to make India's first indigenous passenger car, which was designed for India, made in India. His vision for the Tata Indica was very clear. He said, I'd like a car as large as an ambassador, a car as fuel efficient as a Maruti Suzuki 800, and a car which looks as beautiful as a Zen, which was a car on the roads of India at that time. It is with this vision, ladies and gentlemen, that the engineers of Tata Motors in the Engineering Research Center at Pune got down to designing India's first car in collaboration with IDEO of Turin. When the car was designed, it was spectacular. Nothing like that had been ever seen on the roads of India. It stood out as a modern, contemporary design. But then you need a manufacturing plant to make a car. And a manufacturing plant to make a car is expensive. Even in those days, it would have cost something like $2 billion to put up a manufacturing plant for a car. And at that time, Telco was a small, relatively small company and could not afford that kind of cost. Did this deter Mr. Ratan Tata and his leadership team? No. They went around the world and eventually they found a disused Nissan plant in Australia, which was only being run for about 15 minutes every day. And they were able to negotiate and buy this plant at 1/5 to 1/6 the cost of a new car plant. Ladies and gentlemen, that plant in Australia was disassembled brick by brick, brought to Pune and assembled back in Pune. That is how the manufacturing plant for the Tata Indica was created, at a cost which was effective. It was in this plant that the first Indica was made. I have spoken to workers of Tata Motors in Pune who made the plant at that time. They were school-educated people who had come from the hinterlands of Pune in Maharashtra. They can still remember that it took them 8 days to manufacture the first Indica, to assemble the first Indica. Even now, they have tears of joy in their eyes as they remember that they put together India's first indigenous car. More than 3,000 discrete components go into a car. Tata Motors developed ancillary units in the western region of India to produce these ancillary components. This would include steering wheels and wipers and seats and everything else that goes into a car, the mechanicals of the car and so forth. When the car was launched, more than 97% of all parts that went into the car were indigenously made in India. The Tata Indica was launched with great fanfare in 1998. It had perhaps record bookings at that point in time. But very soon, some quality problems surfaced. Even today, managers of Tata Motors squirm in their seats when they think about those quality problems. And many people turned around and said, didn't we tell you that making a car is not something that India can do at this point in time? But Mr. Ratan Tata was made of sterner stuff. His leadership team and he visited distributors, visited markets, understood what were the problems that need to be fixed. Over the next 18 months, all those problems of the Tata Indica were fixed and the car was relaunched as Tata Indica V2 under the advertising slogan, more car per car. It was a fabulous car. The space inside the Tata Indica could accommodate an entire Indian family and more. The styling of the car was world class. In fact, the BBC in that year called out the Tata Indica as the best car in its class. And by 2001-2002, the Tata Indica went on to become the fastest selling car on the roads of India. Ladies and gentlemen, today Tata Motors produces best-selling cars like the Tata Punch, like the Tata Harrier, the Tata Nexon. Tata Motors produces electric vehicles. But this was the origin of the cars business of Tatas. It required a pioneer like Mr. Ratan Tata to have the courage to say, we will make India's first car. He's quoted as saying, history may think we were right or history may think we were wrong, but we wanted to do it and we knew we did it. We made India's first car. People have asked him, what gave you the confidence to take up a project of this magnitude? And he has said that it is important, particularly for the younger people in India, to believe what we are doing and that we can do much more. And he has said it's the trust in the young engineers of Telco, of Tata Motors, that gave him the confidence to pursue this project. And for him, it was important, not just for Tata Motors, it was a matter of pride for India to have its own first indigenous car. His Excellency, the Ambassador, is referred to the acquisition of Jaguar Land Rover by the Tata Group, which was once again led by Mr. Ratan Tata. That was also a moment of pride. And similarly, the Tata Indica was a moment of pride. What lessons can we take from this story? From the Tata Indica story, the first lesson I'd like to leave behind with each of us is Mr. Ratan Tata created the Tata Indica because he thought that was right for the country. Because he thought every developing and developed country has its own car. India's own car, the nation's pride. It brought about not just jobs, but an entire automobile ancillaries ecosystem in Western India. It enhanced the level of engineering excellence in our country. I would say when we keep our country in mind, when we keep the nation and society in mind, we are able to do great things in our lives. That's a lesson from Mr. Ratan Tata's pursuit of the Tata Indica. But the second lesson, ladies and gentlemen, that I have got out of the story is the courage of conviction, the aspiration to do more. If you believe in something, and if you think that is the right thing to do, the courage of conviction to pursue what you believe in and deliver it is a lesson that I've learned from this. It need not be the Tata Indica. It can be anything big or small that we want to do in our lives. Do we have the courage of conviction to take it forward? Mr. Ratan Tata had that courage of conviction with the Tata Indica, and I'm sure all of you who have listened to this story will build similar courage of conviction to do what you want to do in your own lives, what you believe in. I must move on from the Tata Indica to a second story and some other very different lessons that we can learn from that story. I can talk about the Tata Indica for hours together. Maybe someday I will come to Qatar and do that. But let me move on to another story now and talk about a story which was actually not a pleasant story to speak about. The story of what happened at Tata Finance in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Some of you, and the reason I'm narrating this story is there are some powerful lessons in success and there are some powerful lessons when things go wrong as well. And something did go wrong at Tata Finance. One day, an anonymous letter landed up at the headquarters of the Tata Group saying that a fraud has been committed in Tata Finance. The letter eventually found its way to Mr. Ratan Tata, and the Tata Group ordered an inquiry or an audit. And they found that through the audit that indeed things had gone wrong. The leadership of the company had invested in some shares of dubious nature, and as a result had suffered a loss running into hundreds of crores of rupees. In fact, the whole was much more than 500 crores of rupees on the balance sheet of Tata Finance. This was a terrible moment for the Tata Group because many small investors, retail investors, had invested their lifetime savings in fixed deposits in Tata Finance. So what did Mr. Ratan Tata do? He called in his legal head, he called in his finance head, and they have told me that they only received two directions from him. The first direction that they received from him was that every single depositor's interest should be safeguarded. And the second advice that they received from him was that the guilty should be brought to book, regardless of how senior they are or how junior they are. In fact, a shareholder stood up at an AGM of a Tata company and asked Mr. Ratan Tata, "Sir, we have heard that this has happened, Mr. Tata." He was a Parsi shareholder. He said, "What can I go home and tell my wife Frenny today? What will happen of my money?" And Mr. Ratan Tata stood up on the spot and said, "Your deposits are safe. We will ensure that every bit of money that you have put into Tata Finance is safe and nothing gets lost." The Tata Group actually published an advertisement saying that a fraud has been committed upon Tata Finance, but every depositor's interest would be safeguarded and would be safe. In fact, this was the time before the digital era. This was the time of paper currency. In fact, at that time, the Tata Group actually kept a helicopter on standby to fly money to smaller towns of India should there be a demand from depositors to return their money. Almost immediately thereafter, Mr. Ratan Tata and the board of Tata Sons infused more than 600 crores into the company. Remember, this was a public company listed on the stock exchange. The Tata Group only owned some percentage of this company. It was the promoter and the largest shareholder, but it was not the 100% shareholder. Yet the Tata Group invested the required money to fill in the hole on the balance sheet through infusion of funds and through corporate guarantees. There was no run on the company. People believed what Mr. Ratan Tata said, and only very, very few people actually withdrew their funds. In fact, I was a young manager in those days. I myself had a fixed deposit in Tata Finance, and I did not think twice about keeping that deposit within the company because I believed in what the Tata Group had said. The second thing that Mr. Ratan Tata did was he said the guilty should be punished, however senior they are. The Tata Group, working through the courts of law and working through the Securities and Exchange Board of India, ensured that the guilty were brought to court and were punished. This included the then managing director of the company who resigned because of this. Ladies and gentlemen, there are lessons here in the Tata Finance story for all of us. The first lesson is that things may always go wrong. Things will not go right 100% of the time, but do what is right. Transparency and trust are key. And this is what Mr. Ratan Tata did in this episode. He was transparent about what happened in the company, but he also assured every single depositor that their funds are safe, even if Tata Sons had to bankroll and fund the amount. So doing what is right was extremely important. And second, the other lesson that I have learned from the way he handled this episode was never brush a problem under the carpet. Corporations are made of human beings. Things can go wrong from time to time. But great companies never brush things under the carpet. They face the problem up front and deal with it. And this is what Mr. Ratan Tata did in the episode of Tata Finance. The character of companies led by such great leaders, ladies and gentlemen, lies not only in success, it lies with how you deal with lapses and failures. And the Tata Finance episode is a striking example to all of us on how we can deal with failures and lapses in our own lives. None of our lives are going to be perfect. There will be failures, there will be ups and downs, but how we deal with them transparent, how we admit an error, and how we fix that error while being fair to all our stakeholders. I think that is the stuff of what character is made about. Character is the triumph of our values. And in Mr. Ratan Tata's case, those values included doing what is right and never brushing a problem under the carpet. So I've spoken about two stories now. I've spoken about the Tata Indica, the courage of creating something new, doing it for your country. I have spoken about Tata Finance, doing what is right and never brushing problems under the carpet. I want to move to a third part of Mr. Ratan Tata's life now, which His Excellency the Ambassador has already referred to, and talk about the fight against cancer. Mr. Ratan Tata, in his capacity as chairman of the Tata Trust, led a splendid and ongoing fight against cancer in India. India's first cancer hospital had already been created by the Tata Trust in 1940, which was the Tata Cancer Hospital, the Tata Memorial Hospital in Mumbai, in Parel. But in 2012, when Mr. Ratan Tata was chairman of the Tata Trust, the Tata Medical Center in Kolkata was inaugurated. This center brought cutting-edge technology and medical help to help patients in their fight against cancer. Until today, it serves as the finest hospital of its kind in the eastern part of India. I have visited the Rajarhat Center in Kolkata, where the Tata Medical Center and Cancer Hospital is located. And it is a splendid symbol to the fight against cancer in our country. Thereafter, ladies and gentlemen, you may remember that on the 28th of April 2022, the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched 7 cancer care hospitals in Assam, which were the product of a collaboration between the Tata Trusts and the state government in Assam. Mr. Tata personally led the project for a network of 20 cancer hospitals across 7 states in India in collaboration with the state governments, with the respective state governments. And he was very clear that the focus here was on access to the common man, not just to the elite, access to the common man, that it has to be world-class, top quality of treatment, that the treatment has to be affordable. And he also had to create awareness amongst people that people would go and get tested for cancer. In fact, Mr. Ratan Tata, speaking in Assam on the 28th of April 2022, said that he would dedicate the remaining years of his life to healthcare, which he did. Very simple lesson from me here is giving back to society and helping the needy. All the other success that we achieve in our lives may not be worthwhile unless we find a way of returning something back to the society and back to the needy people around us. Mr. Ratan Tata's life is also testimony to that. And that is one of the reasons, ladies and gentlemen, that he is so much admired, loved, and respected. Not just because he achieved success in business, which he truly did. The Tata Group grew splendidly under him, many-fold. Not just because he led global acquisitions for the Tata Group, that he did, and we are very proud of that as well, but also because he decided to give back to society and community in more than equal measure. I must now move to another story which defines Mr. Ratan Tata in my mind. It has been referred to earlier in this session, but the story I must now talk about, ladies and gentlemen, is the 26/11 attack at the Taj Mahal Hotel in Mumbai. All of us will recall that terrible day when terrorists attacked Mumbai, including the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel. It was the 26th of November 2008, one of the most tragic episodes in the recent history of our nation. People who have worked closely with Mr. Ratan Tata at that time, including the then Chief Human Resources Officer of the Taj Group of Hotels, which is called the Indian Hotels Company, and including Mr. R.K. Krishna Kumar, who worked very closely with Mr. Ratan Tata at that time. He was the Vice Chairman of IHCL, of Indian Hotels. I have spoken and written about how Mr. Ratan Tata immediately, when he heard this news, went and stood outside the Taj for nearly 3 days. I am told he even tried to enter the hotel, but was kept out. Everyone was helpless, but determined to be at hand to help. And he stood there, trying his best to see what could be done. Virtually immediately after the terrorists had been killed within the hotel, Mr. Tata went in, and virtually immediately he announced the formation of a Taj Public Welfare Trust to provide relief to the victims of the terrorist attack. And this included the general public, the police, the firemen, the security forces, the employees of the Taj, and other establishments. I am told that when a couple of officers of the Taj pointed out that the extent of the attack and the extent of what has happened was not yet clear, Mr. Tata responded and said that this was the time to help every victim and his or her family. Apparently, he said that the city of Mumbai has given us so much. This is the time when the city is grieving. This is the time for us to give back to the city and its people. Mr. Tata met every family of the Taj Hotel which had lost a loved one. He spent time with them, sharing their sorrow, but also reassuring them that their futures would be taken care of. But then he did something else, ladies and gentlemen, which was equally courageous. In the first instance, he ensured that the victims and the families of the victims got relief through the Taj Public Welfare Trust. But in the second instance, he announced that the Taj Hotel would be up and running within a month. That was not an easy thing to do because the hotel was lying in tatters. The terrorists had bombed it. There were flames coming through the roof. And I am told that when Mr. Tata and his leadership team entered the Taj, they could see that everything was lying in splinters. In the reception area, in the lobby, things had been broken down. And yet he said, we will have this hotel up and running within a month. Thereafter, in the next few weeks, Mr. Tata took personal care to ensure that this was done without fail. People who have worked in the Taj at that time have told me that he monitored virtually on a daily basis two things. Was there enough help being given to the families of victims? And was the hotel getting ready for relaunch? Eventually, through robust monitoring and day-to-day reviews, this promise was fulfilled when the tower wing of the Taj reopened for business on the 21st of December 2008. The tower block of the Taj is a huge property. Those of you who have seen it in Mumbai would know. It had been considerably damaged, yet it was back in pristine condition. And on the 21st of December 2008, less than a month after the terrorists had attacked it, Taj was open for business once again. Mr. Tata stood on the porch of the Taj on the day it was opened for business. And he spoke about how an unprecedented spirit had been awakened by the terrorist attack, exemplified by how staff of the Taj had sought to protect guests and each other. But then he said a very, very important thing, ladies and gentlemen. And please listen to what he said. He said, by opening the Taj Tower block today, within a month of the attack, we send a strong message that within a month we are up and running. He said, we can be hurt, but we cannot be knocked down. The Taj will stand for another 100 years, and it will stand as a tribute to the tenacity of our people. Ladies and gentlemen, what was important was that the Taj be up and running, not just for business to commence, but it was a proud symbol of defiance, a proud symbol to the tenacity of the people, a proud symbol of Mumbai and India. And that's how the tower wing of the Taj reopened for business within a month, and the entire Taj reopened for business a few weeks after that. And the entire Taj reopened for business sometime after that. There are very, very important lessons. The first lesson that I take is compassion and care for people. Mr. Tata's first and predominant focus was, what are we doing for the families of the victims of the terrorist attack? In fact, I am told when he saw the first template of what was being done for the families of victims, while he is okay with that, but his question was, what more can we do for them? And then he spent the time and effort required to meet several families impacted by the terrorist attack. The second lesson in reopening the hotel was a lesson in courage and defiance, saying that we will be up and running and we will not be cowed down by any cowardly attack of this nature. So those, ladies and gentlemen, are 4 stories that I have narrated to you today. I have narrated the Tata Indica story, the Tata Finance story, the fight against cancer in the cancer hospitals, and the 26/11 attack in the Taj. But before I end my address, I want to talk about a very, very important quality and value of Mr. Ratan Tata. His interactions with his people, his care for people, his respect for the dignity of people. Some of you might have read about how Mr. Ratan Tata visited Pune and visited the home of an employee who was ailing, who used to work with him earlier, all by himself. A colleague of mine, who is a senior executive in the Tata Group, narrated to me just a couple of weeks back how he went across to meet Mr. Ratan Tata earlier this year. Mr. Ratan Tata was not too well. He walked with some effort. And my colleague had gone just to pay his respects to Mr. Tata. They sat for some time, discussing old days. Mr. Tata was very polite and very kind towards him. My colleague is many, many years Mr. Tata's junior, must be in his 50s, and Mr. Tata is in his 80s. And then it was time to leave. As he was leaving, Mr. Tata walked into the door. My colleague told him, "Sir, please don't come. Please be seated. I can see myself out." But Mr. Tata insisted on walking with him to the door, even though with difficulty. At the door, he asked him, "Do you have a car to get back?" And then I am told, Mr. Tata stood at the door until my colleague got into his car and drove away. That was the respect and dignity, ladies and gentlemen, that Mr. Tata had for the people around him. For a person as senior as the chairman of the Tata Group, the chairman of Tata Trust, an icon in the country, and the way he treats his colleagues and the way he treats the people he used to work with and the people who interact with is a lesson that each of us can take into his lives. A director who has worked very closely with Mr. Tata said that one of his foremost principles was to uphold the dignity of the other person he was dealing with. He would never disrespect the dignity of another person. He would never put down the dignity of another person. So many people have spoken about how gracious Mr. Tata was in everything that he said, in everything that he did. More than anything else, ladies and gentlemen, you can be successful in business. You can be successful in philanthropy. But the respect for the individual you're dealing with is perhaps the most human of qualities. It's perhaps the most important of qualities that we bring into our professional and personal lives. That is a lesson for us here. Dignity and respect of the individual, giving dignity and respect to the other person across the table with you, whether he's a colleague in work, whether he's a personal friend, whether he's a relative, dignity and respect of the individual is the foundation of a good society and of a good enterprise. It is because of these values that are practiced right at the top by people like Mr. Ratan Tata that many of us who have worked with the group for so long have tried to imbibe some of these values from them. We might have succeeded or we might have failed, but we have got good role models like Mr. Ratan Tata to look up to and see whether we can borrow some of these principles into our own lives. Through these few stories, ladies and gentlemen, I have tried to share some lessons from Mr. Ratan Tata's life, both from the successes and the failures which he faced. Just to recap what I have told you in the last 35-40 minutes, through the Tata Indica example, I have shared courage, aspiration, love for your country and what can you do for your nation. Through the Tata Finance story, I have shared transparency, doing what is right, never brushing a problem under the carpet. through the cancer hospitals and the fight against cancer, I have shared the primacy of giving back to society, which is as important as, or even more important than success in business and truly a core value of the Tata Group. Through his dealings with other people that he interacted with, I have shared about compassion and care. I have shared about dignity and respect for the individual. These are some of the beliefs, the strong beliefs that Mr. Ratan Tata held. And through these stories, I have shared those beliefs in action. And these are the beliefs, ladies and gentlemen, which make so many of us admire. Many business leaders are respected and admired, but Mr. Tata was respected, admired, adored, and loved because of these values that he held so dear to himself. Finally, I want to end with Mr. Ratan Tata's own words on how he visualized the Tata Group. And this is the reason that some of us have worked with the group for our entire careers from the time we have left our college until now. Way back in 2003, he wrote an epilogue to a book called The Creation of Wealth, written by R.M. Lala, which is a history of the Tata Group. And in that epilogue, he wrote about how he visualized the Tata Group. And look at what he said in the year 2003. He said he would like the Tata Group to be the predominant business house in India, which amidst fast eroding values, will continue to stand out as being a well-integrated, growth-oriented group with market leadership, operating at a high level of integrity, a great value system, and uncompromising in its goal to achieve results without partaking in corruption, bribery, and/or political influence. Those are words which define the values of Tata ever since we were founded 156 years ago. Growth-oriented group with market leadership, operating at a high level of integrity, a great value system, and uncompromising in its goal to achieve results without partaking in corruption, bribery, and/or political influence. These are the ethical values, ladies and gentlemen, that he cherished, he safeguarded, and nurtured so successfully as custodian of the values of the House of Tata. Ladies and gentlemen, as I bring my address to a closure, I would like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to Mr. Ratan Tata, an icon of our times, who has inspired so many of us, from whom we can learn so much, and perhaps practice some of those learnings in our own lives. I want to once again thank IBPC for inviting me to deliver this address on lessons that we can learn from Mr. Ratan Tata. I want to thank all of you who are on this call today, ladies and gentlemen, for giving me such a patient hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harish, for taking us through some of the important lessons. Among the numerous lessons you would have had from him, you have shared something with what is possible in that 45 minutes. You have tried to share the words of wisdom which you gained from the great man himself. Thanks for that. Now we have another 20 minutes left. So we have certain people who have been touched by the life of Mr. Ratan Tata, who has had the fortune of personally interacting with Mr. Ratan Tata. So I would like to invite a few of them to offer their tribute to Mr. Tata. And in the chat box, we have many people writing about whatever learnings they have had. So please keep on writing. It's an encouragement and inspiration for others also. And now I would like to call one person who was fortunate enough to be featured in one of the books by Mr. Harish Bhatt, Ms. Priyamvada Merchant. She wants to share her experience with Mr. Ratan Tata, and also she was mentioned in one of the books, Tata Log of Mr. Harish Bhatt. So over to you, Ms. Priyamvada.
Thank you. And hello, everyone. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to IBPC Qatar for organizing this tribute to Mr. Ratan Tata, giving us a meaningful opportunity to honor a leader who has left an indelible mark on so many lives. I feel immensely fortunate to have had the golden touch of late Mr. Tata at different points in my life, directly and mostly indirectly. This is the first time in my life that I am sharing this close to heart story, which is a family story to anyone ever, even to Mr. Harish Bhatt for that matter. In 1988, as Mr. Ratan Tata prepared to step into his role as the chairman at Telco, Tata Motors with Telco, the massive truck plant was in turmoil due to labor unrest and escalating strikes. Rajan Nair, a rogue union leader, intensified the situation with violent tactics, causing production to plummet and placing Telco's future at risk. In 1989, after a hunger strike threatened to destabilize Pune, my father, Mr. Arun Mehta, a member of the Legislative Council, courageously took stand on the floor of the House, and he advocated for Mr. Ratan Tata's side and convinced the then Chief Minister, Mr. Sharad Pawar, to intervene. The ensuing police action ended the strike, allowing Telco to recover and paved the way for a lasting peace at the plant. Mr. Tata, in his extraordinary humility later, reflected on the need for more compassionate and proactive employee welfare. He acknowledged that perhaps Tatas, had taken their workers for granted, owning the responsibility with grace and wisdom. In gratitude for my father's support, Mr. Tata graciously hosted our family at the Lake House at Telco, a gesture that has left a fond impression of his character, greatness, and kindness upon me. This story, my father never wanted me to share with anyone, which I never did, for my professional life should not have any of the impacts of this. Later, in 2009 and 10, I had the honor of working at the Tata Interactive Systems, where I received the Best Performance Award as part of the second career program for women, popularly known as SKIP. And this experience deepened my admiration for the Tata ethos and their commitment to inclusive growth. When Mr. Tata stepped down, Mr. Harish Bhatt invited me to share my story in his book Tata Log in 2013, a recognition that continues to fill me with gratitude and awe for Mr. Ratan Tata. How I was spotted, I still don't know. Inspired by Mr. Tata, I trained to be a life coach and began my own company called Dreams Realize Here to help others in need. My family also has been personally touched by Tata Trust. My daughter was awarded Sir Dorabji Tata Merit Scholarship, which funded her education throughout till graduation. This support has opened doors for her globally, a testament to the respect and honor that Tata name commands worldwide. Mr. Ratan Tata and his legacy will continue to live through the countless lives he has touched. And I would like to humbly request that we honor his memory by showing the kindness to animals, as he often did, and by carrying forward his legacy of compassion and respect for all the creatures. Mr. Tata was a leader of humility and grace, the likes of whom we see only once in a century. I feel deeply blessed to have experienced his influence, and I'm forever grateful for the values he exemplifies. It's thanks to him that today I have helped over 500 people at Dreams Realize Here. And despite him passing away, his legacy is eternal and his will lives on through us. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Priyamvada, for sharing your personal experience. And the fortune you had of interacting with Mr. Ratan Tata. Now we have with us Mr. Kashyap Dalal, who is the Deputy CEO of Al Fardan Group. Al Fardan Group is a conglomerate in Qatar, and they are into diversified businesses, and they are the dealers for Jaguar, Land Rover also. So I request the admin to unmute Mr. Dalal.
Can I have his name?
Mr. Dalal, can you enable the video so that
He can identify himself or enable the video will help us.
yeah. In the meantime, if we are, till the time when when we find him out, if anybody wants to express, come on video, please mention in the chat box so that we can enable you to speak. Yeah, Mr. Dalal will join shortly. He's having some technical issues connecting. May I request somebody from the executive committee or board of governors of IBPC who want to pay the tribute? Anybody wants from the audience who wants to pay tribute and who wants to speak, please mention in the chat box so that we will enable. We have with us Professor Piyush Sinha, who was a professor at IIM Ahmedabad. He was the person who helped us to reach out to Mr. Harish Bhatt. Professor Piyush Sinha is there. Professor Sinha ji, if you want to share your tribute or pass on some of the experience or learning you had from Mr. Ratan Tata, we welcome you.
Good evening, everyone. And first of all, I must thank Harish to agreed to come on this platform and speak to us. It's very nice of him. I know he's a very great storyteller. You would have witnessed that, the kind of stories. And all through these, whatever he's speaking, I was getting goosebumps. Because the kind of stories, these are the stories which not everybody is made of, as simple as that. Right? And it's not that this is how he lived. I had interaction with a lot of Tata Group companies. I didn't have the fortune of working with him directly, but many people like Harish have been interacting in the group. And it's not just him. It's very interesting that he is able to cascade these values to everyone in the organization. And that's the, in my opinion, is the biggest contribution that a leader makes to an organization. I can live my life the way I want it. But how do I make thousands of people live their life day in, day out for 150 years? That is something that the group brings to the table. And Ratan Tata epitomized it. I would say that it is still, if whatever I have learned from the history of the group, they have had many ups and downs. But, post 1991, the country got liberalized. And that was posing a new challenge to the group, right? And the way the group, especially under Ratan Tata's leadership, and more importantly, because he succeeded JRD Tata, who was himself a towering figure. I've had experience of working with many owners and have consulted companies on how to do succession planning. And if you really ask me, when he took over the reins, my first worry was, if you ask me frankly, my worry was how would he be able to come out further the legacy of GRD, because he had set benchmarks so high. But the four story that Harish just brought to fore to us, and these are just few stories, the multiples of those stories, simply tells you how he just not bettered it. He actually set his own benchmark and made Tata a global company, not just a great Indian company, but a great global company. And a few lessons which Harish was narrating through experiences. I mean, the way he took the success and the failure in an equal measure with such humility is something that, even if we are able to get 10% of that, I would say we have achieved a lot in our lives. So, it's like, it's not just one or two lessons that you bring. Every time you talk about him, to everybody that you meet and talk about him, you get to hear only good, as simple as that he has done for so many people all across, both within the corporation as well as outside the corporation. Right. And I think in the last 30, 40, 50 years, which I've seen the group, the way it moved from just being in Jamshedpur to some other cities to becoming one of the best companies to work with, right? And spend a lifetime in the organization. That's something which I've found, that people who look at the Tata Group don't look at a job. They want to live there for life. And everyone resonates the values and ethos that Mr. Tata and Ratan Tata particularly live through. I have no better example in the world when we talk of success, humility, humanity, right? And above all, despite having the best in the world, he had his own personal choices, which were so basic, so very, very, very down to earth, right? And he is one, if you ask me frankly, I take example of saying, how do you differentiate between a rich and a wealthy person? Right? Where money is there, but it's a secondary. It's an outcome. It's not an objective. Thank you, Taha, for organizing this. And thank you, Harish, once again for bringing to fore these great values that he cherished. And he actually, whenever you will think of it, you will live those values. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor Sinha. Now we have a request from one of our Indian community members here, Mr. Chandrasekharan Angani. So we will come to him. Before that, we have Mr. Rajesh Singh, our executive committee member. He was interacting with Mr. Dalal of Al Fardan Group. Unfortunately, Mr. Dalal is not able to join due to some technical issues he's having. So he had shared a very personal experience he had. So I request Mr. Rajesh Singh to share the story which you heard from Mr. Dalal.
Thank you so much, Mr. Taha. In fact, I was trying to coordinate with Mr. Dalal. He has joined, but he is not able. He's driving. That is the reason why there is some issue. So I'm taking the liberty to share that story with all the attendees, which I heard from him this afternoon. As many of you must be aware that Al Fardan Group is representing two brands, Jaguar and Land Rover in Qatar for Tata Group. And after this was awarded, Mr. Ratan Tata visited Qatar actually without informing anybody. He went directly to the showroom of Jaguar and Land Rover. He spoke to the salespersons there, and he did not identify himself, and they did not recognize him as well. He was very impressed with the showroom and the way cars are displayed. He was very, very impressed. So he wrote a handwritten note to Mr. Umar Al Fardan, and he mentioned that, thank you so much for giving this privilege of representing us in Qatar. I'm very impressed with what I have seen. And he signed it, and he closed the envelope and handed it over to the salesperson. Later on, this letter was handed over to Mr. Omar Al Fardan, And he was shocked and surprised that person of his stature did not identify himself. He did not want any VIP treatment. He just came through normal channel, visited the showroom, and left from the country without bothering their local partners. So that he holds Mr. Tata the highest respect. That talks about the person, what kind of businessman he was, and we are very fortunate and we feel proud that that he was representing all Indians around the world, and the legacy which he has left behind us is unparalleled. So on behalf of Mr. Dalal, I just want to share that story. Thank you, Mr. Taha.
Thanks, Mr. Rajesh. Now we have one from one among our community members, Mr. Chandrasekhar Angadi. His father was a Tata employee. He wants to share something.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, but the video is not there, I think.
I don't know. It was on for some time.
Okay, you can go ahead and share with the.
Anyway,
we
yeah,
have
thank you so much for the opportunity. In fact, I was so overwhelmed when I got the invitation to join this session. Now, I have the Tata values deeply entrenched in me because my father worked and retired from Tata Motors Pimpri, and he was working for the growth shop. And later on, when I started working, I also had an opportunity to visit Tata Motors as our customers because my company had then built the infrared safety systems for the Nachi robots, which are used for manufacturing Indica, and also the final assembly plant. Now, a few things that I really observed over there in the Tata plant is, Tata plant had two types of canteens. There is one officer's mess, and then there used to be workers' mess. And if you ever go to Tata plant, the ingredients or the material in the officer's mess is limited, whereas the same menu is served also for the workers. There's no difference in the menu, and at the same time it is unlimited for the workers, which is very different. So the workers are getting much more. So if I ever go and because my father was working there and I knew a lot of people, they used to take me to the workers mess and we used to really have a nice time. And if you also go to the Pimpri plant, you could see the then head of plant, Sumant Mulgaonkar, Mr. Sumant Mulgaonkar. His statue is also there. His bust is also installed at the gate. I'm not sure Mr. Harish can confirm, but the word sumo, when Tata Sumo was launched, because Mr. Sumant Mulgaonkar was very much involved in developing and launching this vehicle. The Sumo comes from Suman Mulgaonkar, and there's no confirmed story to this or confirmed news, but this is what the news doing rounds of all the people working in Tata Motors. So it is really great where they value people more than the plant or more than anything else. And even within the people chain, as we call in the organization, they are valuing the workers more than anyone else. Also because Mr. Tata served as a trainee intern in the plant, working on screws, nuts, and then that's how he grew. So he actually knew the pains and the requirements of all the classes of the people within Tata Motors. So amazing. Thanks so much for the opportunity, and really happy to be involved or knowing involved with Tata Group for some reason or the other. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Chandrasekhar. Wow, again, a special treatment for the normal employees, unlimited meals for officers with limited meals. Again, setting his own benchmarks, his own example to make sure that every member in the organization who can't afford also can get the best from the company. Thanks, Chandrasekhar, for sharing. I'm getting a lot of requests, but in the interest of the time, we have to stop somewhere. Thanks for everyone who has shared the tribute in the chat. We will be collating it and distributing also to Mr. Harish. Thanks once again for everybody who has joined. I would like to just even though Mr. Harish has summarized, I would like to reiterate the learnings which I had from the excellent session of Mr. Harish, the Indica story, which talked about the courage and conviction, the Tata Finance story, which told about when things may go wrong, but do what is right, and transparency and trust is more important. Then about Cancer Hospital, which talked about giving back to the society. The Taj Mahal Hotel incident, which talked about compassion and care for the employees, and also courage and defiance when the hotel was reopened. So that story, and I was personally, I attended the case study written by Harvard Business School about the customer centricity of the employees, and it was discussed. And the general manager at that time, Mr. Karanbir Khan, he was there in Harvard Business School, and he was sharing his experience. He lost his family also in that terror attack, and still the employees were staying behind and making sure that all the guests were taken care of. Some of the employees lost their lives, some of them lost their loved ones, but they were the last one to leave after making sure that every 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 guest was taken care of. And they were talking about our Indian way of Aditi Devo Bhava, and how the values of Tata Group made them equipped or capable of facing something which was a crisis, which was never told. And then the last one about the way in which Mr. Tata dealt with people with respect and dignity to the team members, and always upheld the dignity of other persons. And then the personal stories shared by Ms. Premvada, Mr. Dalal, Mr. Chandrasekhar, all these, thanks to each one of you. I am sure that each one of us have direct and indirect stories to tell. We have a lot of things, but the important thing is the biggest respect we can give to this great man is to learn from the lessons and practice it in our life. Try to copy it. If we are able to copy at least 50% of the lessons which we learned today, I'm sure that the world will be a better place, and Indian community will be viewed as Mr. Tata is the biggest brand ambassador of doing business right for Indian community across the globe. And each one of us, if we try to learn from this, we will be able to do. And this is the first event of the new executive committee of IBPC. So I would like to thank everybody for showing up, and all the ExCom members and the BOG. But not only that, I also want to say that this is the one of the events. We will have a lot of events. We are the embassy apex body for Indian businesses and professionals in Qatar. We are a large community here. We are around 800,000 people, the largest community here. So we already have long relation with the Arabs, with the Qataris, with the people in the region of over centuries. We have all individual success stories, but together, if we create a big brand like Brand India in terms of business and profession, I think we have a long way to go. We have a lot of things to do together. The lessons we learned from today's session will help us to, gain our strength as a better organized and a professional, and more importantly, great human beings when it comes to doing business and as professionals. So I would like to thank once again Mr. Harish, and also I would like to request him in the future. We would like to witness your session at a longer duration, maybe in the future in one of our physical events here in Qatar. Would like to extend the invitation now itself. And our ambassador had to leave for an official function. So he personally thanked Mr. Harish for the valuable lessons. He was there, he sat throughout the session, and he was there part through the experience sharing or the tribute session by the other participants. So once again, thanks on his behalf, thanks on the behalf of IBPC and Embassy of India as well, and all the members and friends of IBPC here. And we will have our membership campaign also happening soon. And we want to make this the largest Indian business and professional community here, and to set an example for doing the right way of business through the lessons learned from Mr. Ratan Tata. Harish Bhaji, if you want to add any words, over to you.
Nothing at all, that I want to add. I just want to thank IBPC. I want to thank you for inviting me to deliver this talk. And like you rightly said, if each of us listening to this talk can take away at least a few lessons and see how we can implement them in our own lives and our careers, I think that would be the greatest tribute that we can pay to Mr. Ratan Tata and his memory. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Harish ji. Thanks to everyone who has joined. We had around 1,150 registrations from 22 countries. So some people are having, joining us early morning, some late at night. So thanks to each one of you. And I'm sure that, Mr. Harish Bhatt's session was worth attending. Thank you very much. Thanks for the time. And we will soon be coming up with other interesting sessions at IBPC Qatar. Please support us. Thank you.